M. Night Shyamalan's Split won audiences back in his favor and features an incredible performance from James McAvoy. Let's break down this awesome film from M. Night.
What's up, movie friends? Welcome back to Raiders of the Lost Podcast, the ultimate film and TV podcast. James McAvoy has a new movie coming out next month, Speak No Evil, which we saw early and loved. So we were like, let's watch another James McAvoy horror movie.
Plus, M. Night just came out with his film Trapped.
M. Night and McAvoy mood. So we watched Split with our fans on Discord, and we were like, let's do a whole breakdown of this film, because we haven't really talked about this movie on the podcast in any great detail. And I gotta say, I didn't love it on my first watch in theaters. I saw it again a few years ago. I still had kind of a lukewarm response to it, but on my third watch the other day, I ended up really loving this movie. It's now one of my top M. Night movies. I gave it a 4-star rating on Letterboxd. I think it's a really fantastic film, awesome horror movie, great idea, fantastic execution from M. Night Shyamalan, a real return to form after a string of bad films. And I gotta say, it got me really excited for Glass, which ultimately underwhelmed, but it got like the fever up again about Shyamalan, and this was him. Like, he's back. He's got great ideas and incredible stories and really cool characters that even in his weaker films, it's still fascinating. And he's just a guy where when he comes out with a new movie, it's just very interesting.
I think there's 3 movies in his career that are the most important in his filmography. Obviously, The Sixth Sense, one of the best movies of the last 30 years. Such a phenomenal film. And it really blew him up. But following up with Unbreakable to prove that he's not like a one-hit wonder like a lot of filmmakers end up being, to prove that he has the juice, he can do this consistently. And then he made a couple other great movies. The Signs is incredible. The Village is incredible. But after The Village, M. Night had a string of very mediocre, very poorly received movies. So starting with Lady in the Water, The Happening, The Last Airbender, After Earth, and The Visit. A lot of those movies poorly reviewed by fans and critics alike. However, despite them not being great critical responses, he still pulls in huge box offices with his movies. Like, all of these have really good box office performance, despite The Last Airbender and After Earth being around 4.0 on IMDb, which are terrible ratings. The Happening being a disappointing first rated R movie from M. Night Shyamalan. And The Visit's pretty good, but was not that incredible, but still made a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then in 2016, M. Night comes out with Split, which was very important because I think this changed that reaction from audiences and critics alike to go back to loving his movies and being like, oh, right, M. Night is the man. This guy has great ideas, makes really interesting and unique movies. Not to mention, he self-finances all of his movies now, starting with The Visit. He took that box office that he made from The Visit, which he self-financed by putting a big loan on his 142-acre Pennsylvania estate, self-financed The Visit with Blumhouse, made bank off of that movie, and then he financed Split, and he's financed every single movie since The Visit himself because of the success of that box office. And so he's really a director right now that is creatively does whatever he wants. He has no one else to appease in terms of a studio, no execs breathing down his neck. So he's a filmmaker that I respect immensely because he's been self-financing every single one of his movies since The Visit in 2015.
Yeah, and it's interesting because his name used to carry so much weight. New Shyamalan movie
still does.
And then it stopped because of that string of bad movies. He made 4 really great movies, The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, Signs, and The Village, in a row. That's an incredible run as a filmmaker. Even if you're not really big fans of some of the films, it's still very impressive what he accomplished with 4 films in a row. And then those other 4, like you said earlier, Lady in the Water, Happening, Last Airbender, After Earth, it feels like a different filmmaker. And the success dropped, and the fan and the acclaim, the fans and the acclaim and the accolades fell away as well. So The Visit was a big step forward, and The Split was huge. Split ended up making $278 million.
Is the most profitable film of 2017 in terms of return on investment. So in 2016, Split came out. And by the way, I'm reading this off my laptop because I didn't memorize everything. We had a hater in the last episode came out and said, saw you guys reading off notes on your laptop. How could you
They stopped watching after 10 minutes because we were reading notes we took.
Pathetic. Sorry, I didn't memorize 17 pages of notes that I took yesterday.
And also, we have a conversation in this show.
It's all improvised, bud.
I'm sure they're listening now.
I hope you all understand. I'm reading this because I did not memorize the synopsis for the film in the box office. So 2016, M. Night Shyamalan wrote and directed Split. IMDb to 7.3 with over 565,000 ratings. Rotten Tomatoes at 78%. Critic score 79%. Audience score, everyone likes it. $9 million budget, again, funded by himself, which he did after the visits. Split grossed $136 million in the United States and Canada domestically, and $140 million in other territories, grossing, like Anthony said, $278 million at the box office.
Woo!
Making the film made a net profit of $68 million for the studio after factoring, obviously, advertising costs, theater ticket sales, and everything like that. It had a gross profit of $105 million with the over 2,000 return on investment. 2,000% return on investment.
2,000%?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Making it the most profitable film of 2017. Not the highest box office, but return on investment.
I really love the film, and we all know, well, maybe not everyone knows, that Split was actually supposed to be his follow-up to Unbreakable. He wanted to make Unbreakable. He wanted to make Split right after Unbreakable, but Unbreakable, it was pretty well received, and it did okay at the box office, but it cost $75 million production, which means $100 million when you factor in marketing, so big price tag, and it only made about that much. So it didn't generate much profit, and Universal ended up losing money on the film. So that basically put they had to pump the brakes on Split happening.
And that was a surprise because Bruce and him just made The Sixth Sense before that, which was a massive juggernaut at the box office. And Bruce Willis made $100 million himself off that movie because of box office. And then you think the next film from Bruce Willis and M. Night Shyamalan is going to kill at the box office, but it really didn't.
Yeah, and unfortunately, he was not able to revisit it. And then he ended up doing Signs in the Village after that. But his plan was to make Split after. Funny you say that Bruce Willis made $100 million. Did you know that he didn't want to do The Sixth Sense?
Oh, he didn't want to do it?
So Bruce Willis acted in a hockey brawler movie for Universal.
That's right.
And then during production, he caused like a ton of disturbances and actually was such a difficult actor on set. They shut the film down and stopped it.
Yeah, I remember we talked about this in our Bruce Willis spotlight.
And so to prevent him from getting sued up the wazoo by Universal, they were like, okay, in order to make this right, you need to star in 3 films that we're producing. One of them was The Sixth Sense. So he didn't even get a salary really for The Sixth Sense. He didn't get his $20 million quota. That was another condition. Like, we're not paying you your quota for these movies. You're making a small salary, and then you can get a percentage of the box office.
Little did they know that was a bad decision.
So he didn't intend to star in The Sixth Sense. He did it for legal reasons, so he wouldn't be sued. And so that was a deal they struck, and The Sixth Sense ended up being the biggest hit of his career and the most money he's ever made on a film, still to this day. Just his most profitable as an actor, The Sixth Sense, because he got a chunk of that $650 million box office. Now, speaking of Bruce Willis, before we break down Split, the plot and everything, there's a lot that has to do with Unbreakable. There's a lot of connections between the two films, and like we said, not only did Shyamalan want to make Split right after Unbreakable, he actually originally wrote Kevin Wendell Crumb to be in Unbreakable.
All right, well, so first, real quick synopsis on Split. Kevin Wendell Crumb, he's a man with 23 different personalities. He abducts and keeps 3 teenage girls in a basement for unknown reasons. As Kevin's therapist delves deeper into his mysterious disorder, the girls must find ways to escape before a new and sinister 24th personality reveals itself and takes control of Kevin entirely.
Fantastic setup. And before we get into it, McAvoy is absolutely sensational in this role.
Man, this guy's awesome.
If there's been an Oscar snub in recent memory, I think he's on the top of the list with this film.
He's one of those actors that everyone adores. This guy.
Yeah.
Anytime he's in a movie, I'll watch him eat Jell-O. I'll watch him do anything. It was so exciting to see Speak No Evil because it's a quick remake. That movie just came out in Europe, the original, a year or two ago. And obviously, that's the biggest controversy with the movie. People are like, oh, we have to remake everything in Hollywood. Listen, it's a totally different film in a lot of different ways. But also, McAvoy is so sensational in it. He really puts that movie on his back as an incredible. And it was so cool. He was there in person to hear him talk. And there's a great Q&A. And he seems so down to earth, so likable, very funny and charismatic. And just seems like a cool guy. But I've always been a fan of McAvoy for the last 15 years. I mean, early films like Wanted were big for me with him. Then he just started taking on his own, becoming
Atonement Man,
Professor X for so many years. He's the man. He's awesome.
He really is, pound for pound, one of the most talented actors working today. And he's had a great start to his career. I can't wait to see what he does in the future. But what's interesting, I saw an interview with him. People asked, does your acting affect your persona and your real life and when you come home? And what's interesting, as intense as his acting is, he's able to shut it off in between takes. And so in between takes, he doesn't stay in character at all. And that's really special because he's so good in his roles. It's just fascinating that some actors, they choose to stay in that to maintain that. But someone like him, he's really able to turn on and off like a switch when he needs to.
Like when we did our Quiet Place episode, we were talking about the scene where Emily Blunt gives birth inside the tub, and it's a very intense, emotional moment, and she did it in one take, and John Krasinski said as soon as he said cut, she goes, all right, what's everyone having for lunch?
Yeah, exactly. Some actors just have that ability to just like, they can turn it on and they can turn it off. Not all actors can, but it's interesting because his roles are so intense. Now, I love Split, and we're going to break it down, but there's quite an extensive connection between Unbreakable that I want to break down all these bits. And Shyamalan put things in Unbreakable to tease Split. He even put Kevin Wendell Crumb in Unbreakable.
No, he didn't.
He's in Unbreakable. And I'm going to break all these down right now.
Did you look this up or did you see that?
I looked it up and I watched the scene.
I haven't seen Unbreakable in a while, so I'm very curious where he is in the movie. It's obviously
you'll know what I mean.
Yeah.
You'll know the scene perfectly when I describe it.
Okay.
And you'll be like, oh my God. But you're going to watch Unbreakable because it's I think it's M. Night's best movie.
It's been a while for me. It's probably been 10 years since I've seen that movie.
So now you have a more refined taste for filmmaking.
It's so refined.
You have a great palate for film.
It's refined sugar and everything. Yeah.
Watch Unbreakable. It is a directing masterclass. Now, let's get into the connections between Split and Unbreakable. So the titles are actually opposites of one another. One title, Unbreakable, and then Split.
Oh, yeah.
They're polar opposites. Also, both movie posters have cracks of glass on the covers. And if you line them up, the cracks actually kind of line up when you put the posters side by side.
That's pretty cool.
Kevin Wendell Crumb, he's a broken person. He's got 23 personalities. His mind is broken. Whereas David Dunn is unbreakable. All right. Also, here's the scene. You want to hear the scene? So, in Unbreakable, David Dunn, when he begins learning that he might have special powers, he starts using that to see into people's past and their experiences. When he touches people who have gone through trauma or have been abused or are abusers, he can see the memories and flashbacks in their minds. He does it first time at the train station, and then he does it again at work. He works at the stadium in college. And what happens is, in that scene, he bumps with the guy and knows that the guy has a gun, and that leads to them pulling that guy out of line. He runs, and he goes away. And then Mr. Glass chases after him, shatters a bunch of his bones. But before he bumps into the guy with the gun, David Dunn bumps into a little boy. This little boy is being dragged by his arm by a woman in red. And then he gets a flashback, and now Kevin in Split had an abusive mother, and there's that shot of him as a child hiding from his mom. She jumps down under the bed and screams at him. Now in the Unbreakable scene, when David Dunn bumps into people, he'll hear that person's voice and see their memories. When he bumped into the little boy, he heard multiple voices.
Oh my God.
Hence the split personality already forming inside of young Kevin Wendell Crumb's mind.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember that scene.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I thought it would be, because in the movie, in Split, once, the therapist starts to discover the different personalities, and obviously Dennis and his involvement in what's going on, which we'll get into in a little bit, she says, and when she meets Dennis for the first time, she asks him, so when did you come and see the light? He said, as soon as I was like 3 years old, that's when I first came into the light, because I was one of the first protectors of Kevin from his mother that he could cope with, because I'm strong and disciplined and I can take it.
Exactly. So the personalities began manifesting, probably not all 23 of them, but some of them began manifesting that young.
And Dennis clearly is one of the first ones, because that's why he has the OCD with everything having to be so clean, because his mother was obsessed with cleanliness and said the only way to keep her stable is to have everything perfect, everything pristine.
That's a great note on that dialogue line about him being 3 years old.
Like you said, my film analysis has been refined.
So also at the end of Unbreakable, David Dunn hunts down the Orange Man and then kills him in the home of that family he invaded. That was originally supposed to be Kevin Wendell Crumb. So M. Night originally wrote Unbreakable for Kevin, the Beast, to be the villain he fights at the end. So that guy was supposed to be the Beast. But ultimately, he's like, I want to add, I love this character so much, I want to be able to flesh out the storyline of his. Hence him changing it to being, let me give him his own origin film. right after Unbreakable, because I'm sure he assumed Unbreakable would do really well. And then since he took out the Beast at the end of Unbreakable, he included the Orange Man instead. That's why that character has really no backstory that at all, really, in that movie. He just kind of shows up halfway through, and then David confronts him at the end of the movie. So that was supposed to be the Beast. There's also, remember in Mr. Glass's art gallery, and we get that great shot of he's describing this artwork cover of a superhero fighting a giant beast monster villain. And he's describing it in detail to a possible person who wants to make a sale, who wants to buy it. And then the guy says, oh, my kid's going to love it. And then Mr. Glass kicks him out. He's like, get out of here. That beast figure looks exactly how the Horde personalities describe the beast. Huge mane, giant, strong, and muscular, long nails and claws. So that beast in the cover at the art gallery looks exactly how the Horde describes the beast to Casey Cook.
I think I have to watch Unbreakable tonight.
You're going to watch it again. Also, comic names, David Dunn, Kevin Crumb, Casey Cook. Also, I think that this is definitely not, it's a theory, but I think it's absolutely true that Mr. Glass created Kevin, as well as basically creating David Dunn.
There's a strong allusion to that
Yes.
in this film that has to do with the train station and flowers.
So you see trains, but it's not even that. So Kevin's father, when he was a child, abandoned him and left him, and he went on a train. Kevin's father went on a train. It's easy to assume it's the same train that David Dunn was on that crashed. Hence, Mr. Glass killed Kevin's father, forcing him to be solely raised by his abusive mother without a protector in the house to protect him.
Yeah, and that's why I meant the flowers, because before he transforms into the Beast for the first time in Split, Kevin or all the personalities, they're on a little trip, a little journey. They purchase flowers. They go to a train stop, an underground train, and they leave flowers on the ground before they go on the train compartment and become the Beast.
That's absolutely a great point.
Probably leaving flowers for the memory of their father.
Exactly, 100%. Great point. I didn't even put that together.
Like I said, my film analysis is refined, Anthony. Refined film analysis.
Also, both superpower beings have their origins on a train. David Dunn is really his powers are revealed, so his character basically has his origin from the train crash. That's when the character's origin is beginning.
Sort of. You could also argue that his origins begin in the car crash with his girlfriend.
But he's forgotten about it.
Yeah.
He's forgotten about his abilities. He's forgotten everything about him
might have just
physically.
chalked it up to,
Exactly.
I was, adrenaline.
But the train crash is the origin of his superhero alter ego that eventually forms in the film. So in a way, that is the origin. Whereas the Beast's origin happens on a train. So Kevin goes into a train compartment to turn into the Beast. So connecting both characters on the trains as well. Also, each character has their own color. So Mr. Glass, obviously purple is his color. He wears purple all the time, drives a purple car. David Dunn wears green a lot, and then his superhero costume essentially is his green raincoat from work. Whereas for Kevin and the Beast and his personalities, the Horde, their color is yellow. And you see yellow a lot in this movie. So Dennis's handkerchief is a yellow handkerchief because he's OCD. He opens the doorknob with it. He wipes the dashboard of the car with it and picking up the trash on the dash. He's always using that yellow handkerchief. Hedwig's jacket is yellow. The yellow flowers in the bathroom where the girls are being held. And the flower in the bathroom is actually a Protea pincushion. It was named after the Greek god Proteus, who in Greek mythology had the ability to change his shape and form at will. And then there's the entire interior of Kevin's home, in the Horde's home, is yellowish tones, yellowish walls, and the tiles in the zoo are yellow in color.
It's a lot of connections, dude.
Yeah. And then if you look at Mr. Glass and Kevin, they are opposites. So Mr. Glass has a brilliant mind but a broken, frail body. And then Kevin has a broken, frail mind but a powerful body.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Those are all the connections with Unbreakable.
I love that. I want to watch Unbreakable ASAP. And this is really cool, this whole franchise of a filmmaker making superhero movies in a superhero franchise, unbeknownst to the public what he's really doing, his plans for all these movies, and then makes a franchise out of them. And it had so much potential. And I think it still does have potential going forward. It could work if, some things could be corrected from Glass.
I'm not sure with that ending.
Yeah, it's tough, but there was a lot there, especially with Unbreakable, with Split. And it just ended on a sour note with that last film, unfortunately, because Split was an excellent sequel to Unbreakable, which is a great film. But that's not to say that Split's not without its faults. You know, some of the biggest pros to the film obviously are James McAvoy. He's spectacular in this movie. Such an incredible performance. So exciting. I'm sure any actor would think it was just one of the best jobs they would ever have. And plus, I think a great strength of Split is we have a great payoff for the mystery of the Beast. The Beast is the biggest mystery of this movie. Does it exist? Is it real? And then finding out that it does exist and it is super powerful and terrifying and this huge foe. Great payoff. But there are cons. Like a lot of M. Night Shyamalan movies, the dialogue seems very wooden sometimes from specific characters. McAvoy is such a sensational actor that, not from him, but the dialogue's not great for some characters and some actors. And you know, we're kind of chugging along as best we can, getting through some of these scenes. Some of the scenes aren't as thrilling or exciting as some of the others, or as well, I think, executed as others. And a con for me is I know it's a PG-13 film, and that's sort of M. Night's bread and butter, and it's how he's made his career. But there's hardly really any gore until later on in the film, and when there is gore, there's not much of it. I wish there was a bit more. And if there is gore, it's mostly off camera. And we really... I like this movie a lot. I always liked it. Even the first time you said you didn't love it the first time you saw it, I loved it the first time I saw it. But my biggest con with it was always there's 23 personalities. We really, plus the 24th, which we eventually meet. At the end of the film, I think we've only met 8.
9.
So, 9?
Yeah.
So we've met 9 personalities total in the course of the film. I would have liked to see more than that, even though it was a lot.
Yeah.
But maybe you don't want to overdo it. I understand that. But it was advertised so well. It had great trailers, and I think everyone was excited to see 23 different personalities. I remember the marketing campaign was really strong on this film, and then really only getting a handful for the majority of it. Really, there are 3 or 4 that are. We have Dennis, Miss Patricia, and Hedwig are the majority of the film, and Barry, until the Beast comes in. The other ones we sort of just see on video files, and then that little quick outburst at the end when they're all kind of in the light at the same time. So I wish we got more of the other personalities, but I understand because it's a great plot where Dennis and Miss Patricia have taken over control of Kevin's body, taking it away from Barry, who Barry was the one that had the most power and could decide who would go into the light besides Hedwig, who had a secret power, which no one knew that Hedwig could do it himself, which is why Patricia and Dennis hooked up with him and gave him some power. But Barry was really the main source of power and control for Kevin's body before the events of this film.
The reason I would say he didn't reveal the personalities is that it would just have been too much for the story.
Yeah.
And it would have been pretty difficult to balance that many characters. And I think it would have been overwhelming and too much.
Might have gotten repetitive.
And also, how do you put that into the narrative in an interesting way? Are you just going to have McAvoy do a 10-minute monologue as 23 different people? I mean, that sounds cool, but it might not work in terms of the story unfolding on screen. So I know that is a criticism of the film, but I don't mind that we only see 9 because those are such strong characterizations, and McAvoy is absolutely sensational. And in terms of the marketing, you're right, it had a great trailer. What really struck a chord with audiences was McAvoy, bald head, red turtleneck with a necklace, speaking like a British woman. I think that was it's such an interesting image and character to see. I think that for audiences really struck a chord and made us all be like, what is this movie?
Well, plus the first time you meet Miss Patricia, which is terrifying. I think the trailer was great because it showed the opening sequence where these 3 young girls, they're in a car, one of their fathers at the trunk putting groceries away or a birthday cake away, whatever it is, and then someone gets in the car and it's not him, it's someone else. That was the first trailer. It was great. And Anya Taylor Joy really sells that scene terrifically. And I think that was a really strong opening and a really strong trailer. That was really intriguing. But then when we first meet Miss Patricia, not just in the trailer, but in the film, we meet Dennis next. And then Dennis leaves. Dennis is the one who kidnaps them. And then Miss Patricia comes in. And the characters, the 3 girls, they're like, what the F? And as an audience member, you're also like, what the F? It's a great first 20 minutes of a film.
Yeah. I think that's really, like you said, this role it must have been a dream come true for an actor, and which is why McAvoy probably jumped at it so passionately. And there are 23 identities we see on the computer file diaries. So the names are Barry, Jade, Orwell, Kevin, Heinrich, Norma, Goddard, Dennis, Hedwig, Bernice, Patricia, Polly, Luke, Raquel, Felinda, Ansel, Jalen, Kat, BT, Samuel, Mary Reynolds, Ian, and Mr. Pritchard. The 24th identity was the Beast, and the last personality that was formed within Kevin's mind by the trigger. Only 8 are listed in the credits, but we see all their names on that computer screen. And this is actually based on a real case in real life where the first ever multiple personality person was a case under investigation. Billy Milligan. He was the first person diagnosed with multiple personality disorder and used an insanity defense by reason of that disorder, and also was the first to be acquitted because of the disorder. He had 24 personalities consisting of what they called 10 desirables, so 10 decent people, and then 13 undesirables, 13 bad people for personalities. And so that was the main inspiration for Shyamalan making this film. Also, Joaquin Phoenix was his first choice. And Joaquin Phoenix was in talks to star in the film as the lead. However, M. Night couldn't reach the money requirements he had for a salary.
Yeah, and I wonder what would it look like if Joaquin bulked up for a movie, which he seldom does. He loses weight for movies, but he doesn't really get that big.
He got a little big for You Were Never Really Here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm guessing the Patricia character probably would have sounded just like Commodus.
Well, speaking of the different personalities, I'd love to run through descriptions of what we know of them. That's
definitely.
Cool. So obviously Kevin Wendell Crumb is the real personality, the original, who we know his father disappeared going on that train, who the assumption is he was killed on the train that Mr. Glass, obviously, we know. I don't want to spoil that movie, but we know what happened to that film. And we don't see Kevin in this film until the third act, really, second to third act transition, where he gets control slightly because Casey says his name, Kendall Wendell Crumb, while he's the Beast, which temporarily puts everyone at bay, gives Kevin control for the first time since, I think he says, is it 2014?
Yeah.
The last thing I remember was being on a bus. So can you imagine not being in control of your body for 6 years or whatever, how many years it is, 2-3 years, which is insane. Then we have Barry S. Barry, again, is the one who has had the most control of Kendall for a long time because Miss Patricia and Dennis were nefarious. Mr. Dennis had a problem with underage girls. Miss Patricia, we don't know exactly too many details, but we know that she is very sinister, and despite putting on a presence and a facade of politeness and nicety, she does have a very dark side.
That's his mommy issues coming out.
And
then Dennis,
I'm not on Dennis yet. Sorry. Oh, yeah.
So Dennis, his personality stems from, there's a story that when Kevin was a child, a bunch of teenage girls played a prank on him. And so that could inform the Dennis character in his obsession with teenage girls.
Gotcha. So Barry, like I said, even though, spoilers obviously, Dennis is impersonating Barry this entire film. We never really see the true Barry until the video feed probably. But even the first time he visits the therapist as Barry, that's Dennis. It's clearly shown because he has the handkerchief when he opens the door, getting into the apartment, things like that to show that he's actually Dennis or fixing the chocolates. But Dennis, for a long time, was in charge of the personalities, and he was in charge of who could come out and take control of the body and be in the light. But he didn't know that Hedwig had that ability as well and could be in the light whenever he wanted. Then we have Dennis, who again has OCD. He's very disciplined. He likes to watch young girls dance naked. For that reason, the others try keeping him from from emerging, not engineering. And that OCD has something to do with his mother being obsessively clean and wanting things to be neat and tidy. Obviously, when she's coming after him under the bed with the hanger, she says, "You've made a mess, Kevin. You've made a mess. Get out of here. You've made a mess." Then we have Miss Patricia. She's an orderly older woman who tries to keep other personalities in check. And like I said, despite her perfectionism and politeness, she is very unstable and has that strong belief in the Beast and what the Beast is capable of.
I added paprika to it.
Hedwig is a 9-year-old child who can take control of Kevin's body whenever he wanted. No one knew that until Dennis and Patricia figured it out, and everyone makes fun of Hedwig, all the personalities. So they made a deal with Hedwig where you can have control whenever you want if you help us take over control of the body, which they eventually did. But I like how they've already done this before the movie started, really.
Etc.
etc. But Kevin is a big fan of Kanye West, and he loves to dance.
Also, he loves animals.
He's also in Glass a lot. Then we have Jade, who we see very briefly. She's one of the several identities who appears on a video log. We don't know the age. We can assume that Jade is a teenager and suffers from diabetes, one of those characters and one of the personalities that has a different disorder, a different biological makeup than everybody else.
It seemed like she was like a 16-year-old.
Something like that.
From his performance.
Who has to take insulin. Then we have Orwell, who appears on a video log feed. We also see Orwell at the very end of the film as well. He's an historian and is always relating history to events that are going on at the moment. Then we have the Beast, which is the 24th personality, which finally reveals itself in the second to third act. Transforms, has an intense strength, can climb walls by pulling on the smallest imperfections of surfaces, run very fast, just insanely strong, can bend steel bars. He also kills and eats 2 girls that are kidnapped, 2 of the girls. And then we have Heinrich. Though he's never seen, it's mentioned that Heinrich is among the personalities who's worried about the Horde and splits. And then Samuel, but everyone else we don't really get too much detail for, except for in Glass, we have a personality named Mary Reynolds that we are with for briefly. But everyone else is just described in video feeds or until other future movies.
I'm actually currently doing the Beast workout that McAvoy did.
The Beast workout?
Yeah, his trainer has an app, and I've been doing his workout regimen that he did to beef up for this role.
How's that working for you?
It's wonderful.
Workout?
It's great. It's tough.
Nice, dude.
It's a lot of working out.
Let me know when you're ready for leg day with me, man.
There's a lot of leg day in it. My legs are getting stronger.
Yep, we'll see about that.
But it's pretty tough. And McAvoy, he looks great in the role, and they did a great job with covering up his body a lot, especially as Barry and Hedwig, so that when he emerges shirtless in the train, he does look very imposing, and it does look like he's immediately added on a lot of muscle tissue in that moment.
CGI veins, too.
Yeah,
like
CGI
the blue,
veins help.
black veins.
Yeah.
Did you know that M. Night Shyamalan had to get Disney's approval to make Split?
To make the movie?
To make the movie with
Really?
Kevin. So that's because when he made Unbreakable, David Dunn in Unbreakable, that's a Disney film technically because it was made through Touchstone Pictures, which is a Disney production company. And so Shyamalan wanted to make a movie about Kevin, but he wanted to put David Dunn in the film. So he had to get permission from Walt Disney Studios, which had produced Unbreakable. So he met with Sean Bailey, who was in charge of that division at the time, who gave permission to use the character in the film under terms of a gentleman's agreement, where he said, all right, you can use the characters and make this film on Split without us, but if you're going to make a sequel, Disney has to be involved. And so when he made Glass, that movie was distributed by Universal and Disney together.
So I believe the deal was just to get David Dunn in
Yeah,
it,
sorry. So
not to
David
make
Dunn.
the movie.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to slight fact check on that.
Thank you for the fact check.
He was going to make the movie regardless, but I think that was obviously a smart deal because Glass ended up making over $200 million too, so everybody benefited from throwing David Dunn into that movie.
And he was very secretive about it. Obviously, you know, when M. Night makes a movie, he's always very secretive, especially when he made The Village. The stories about the secrecy behind that are really fun. But he didn't put the final scene in many of the scripts and the shooting scripts so that no one really knew about it, and then cut it from all test screenings. He cut the final scene from many test screenings. And, you know, this movie had an original cut of 3 hours for a director's cut. And there's even a character that's cut out that's played by a famous actor now. Sterling K. Brown,
Oscar nominee,
was originally in Split. He actually played the neighbor of Patricia, of the doctor, the Dr. Fletcher. And so he has a couple scenes where that are deleted that concern Betty Buckley's Dr. Fletcher and her next door neighbor, who's played by Sterling K. Brown, a neurophysician named Professor Shaw, who she asked for advice on DID, dissociative identity disorder. And so it's really interesting. There's a couple deleted scenes that you can watch online where they're sort of debating and also agreeing on many aspects of brain chemistry and what can happen with somebody's prowess if they are able to control their mind like that, or unbeknownst to them, sort of like a placebo effect, where the placebo effect, it's charted, it's documented, it's scientifically proven that placebo effect is real, where you can be given sugar pills, but your brain kind of heals yourself in whatever way the pill is supposed to heal you.
The power of the mind over the body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they have a couple discussions about that. But overall, eventually, M. Night Shyamalan cut those scenes because it added too much. They didn't need it. It was untimely. It slowed things down.
Instead, we got the scene with the other neighbor just watching TV.
Also, Ennio Morricone's music was originally going to be used and licensed for Split, and he was tracking the film with Ennio Morricone's scores from his past films. But eventually, he decided that it was too old-fashioned, didn't work, and ended up bringing on composer West Dylan Thordson to write the original score for Split.
Interesting. He also, for the character of Kevin and the Horde, he didn't imagine them being bald. That's not how he wrote the screenplay. And since he was having trouble casting after Joaquin dropped out, he accidentally bumped into James McAvoy at Comic-Con, who was there promoting X-Men Apocalypse with a shaved head. And they met. It was the first time meeting, and I'm sure they shared a nice conversation about liking each other's work. And then from that interaction, M. Night Shyamalan, it immediately clicked that Kevin and the characters of the Horde would work really well if he had a shaved head. And then that's why he cast McAvoy from that chance encounter meeting at Comic-Con.
It makes sense because if they had longer hair, you'd have to do it differently for every character. Just be a continuity on set nightmare.
That'd be a nightmare.
That'd be so much time to maintain.
Or wigs, if you want to do wigs.
When you wear wigs.
Every time. I'm never saying the word wigs again.
Have you worn wigs?
You say that more than I've ever said fire.
When will you wear wigs?
That's such a niche quote. It's such a
Lord of the Rings fans know.
Yeah, they know that one.
He also broke his knuckle. So James McAvoy broke his hand while filming on location in Philadelphia. This entire film was majority shot in Pennsylvania. And so to quote him, on Split, I broke my hand. I was meant to punch a door. Actually, it wasn't even on camera. It was before I came on camera, but there was a soft padded bit on this door, and I took to punching it a few times before I went into the scene because I was meant to come in like full of beans and full of adrenaline, and it was mental. It was metal. The rest of the door was metal, and I missed the part bit, and it broke my hand. I carried on the scene while my hand was broken, white as a ghost, and it kind of in shock. He actually continued for 3 days before finally seeking medical attention at a local urgent care, and as a result, he was forced to work with an injury on the set of Atomic Blonde as well in 2017.
You can actually see the swollen hand when he buys flowers.
Massive.
Yeah, he's like they're hiding the swollen hand.
And I'm trying to remember Atomic Blonde. I believe he wears a lot of long jackets that go past his wrists.
Yeah, he wears the big overcoat a lot in that movie, and then lots of sleeves. You're right. Yeah, but he does wear a lot of layers in that film.
So I wonder if he's got a brace on or something.
I don't know, but yeah, he does have the shaved head. It's a little bit longer. It's not so much of a shave, but more of a buzz cut in that film because he did that right after this. Yeah,
broken hand in Split and Atomic Blonde. That's pretty funny.
That's pretty funny.
It's like Brad Pitt in Seven.
Now let's get into the film and the story. So the first scene is the opening of the film is very strong, and it's really interesting how it's portrayed because we get right off the bat that Casey is very quiet, isolated, outcast in the social group, and her parents basically forced her friend to invite her to the party, and also because she didn't want the blowback for not inviting that girl as well. And then they're abducted by Dennis, who, like you said, incapacitates the father somehow behind the car, gets into the front seat, and then that girl's that father's girl, that guy's daughter, she's the first one to notice that it's a different person in the front seat, and I think this movie does a good job in this moment of portraying politeness to the extent where people choose to be polite rather than choosing to survive.
Yeah, because Claire's like, pardon me, sir, I think you're in the wrong car, but aggressively at the same time.
But like, when you watch that scene, you're like, they should have run out of the car right away. But it's like, really, that seems more accurate to what someone would really say. I think that a person would assume and try to think the best of another person. Like, oh, they must have made a mistake. Maybe they have the same car. And so I think that's why she says that, and they allow themselves to be sprayed by that incapacitating liquid. But then there's the moment where Casey, she's the first one to notice him, and she freezes. She doesn't say anything. She doesn't try to escape. She knows there's something wrong. She saw the boxes of takeout food spilled out on the pavement through the side mirror of the car. She knows this person is there to hurt them, but yet she does nothing. And I feel like he immediately senses that she's not going to do anything. And I think that this works really well for the scene because of the character who Casey is. Because Casey, I'm guessing that M. Night wrote this and asked Anya Taylor Joy to perform it as if you were like a deer in headlights, as if you were an animal or a critter who has encountered a predator and they're frozen. They're trying to assume this fetal position and let the predator know that they're not dead, that they're not alive. That's something that all sorts of animals do. They freeze up and they completely go motionless when they're at threat. Some run away and some don't move. I just saw a video last night of this owl. This bird went into an owl's nest to try and get the eggs, and the two owl parents started attacking it, and then the hawk froze and played dead, and the owls stopped attacking it. So I think this is an example of her character has frozen because there's a lot of allusions and metaphors to animals and the animal kingdom and animal hierarchy, predators and victims. Casey has been a victim of a predator her entire life since she was a child, and she's lived in the presence of a predator. So I think that, and also since she's never escaped that, even at this age of 16 or 17, shows that probably her only defense mechanism has just been to freeze whenever a predator reveals itself around her. So I think this really works where Casey doesn't try to get out of the car.
I think that's exactly why. Because her way to survive is just to not do anything. Mm-hmm. And this movie really does a great job with that main theme of trauma. You know, M. Night Shyamalan, his movies are always rich with allegory, whether it's to religious elements or great thematic elements, grief, pain, trauma. Trauma is a common one in his movies, and this one is massively important here. And, you know, according to the Beast, those who have experienced trauma are pure. To him, they're superior beings. That's revealed at the end of the film. Kevin was traumatized as a young boy by his abusive mother, led him to creating all these alternate identities to cope. And now Casey's ongoing abuse from her uncle, which started when she was a child, combined with the death of her father, has brought her here. You know, it's revealed later on at the third act, the end of the movie, the climax, when the Beast is about to kill her. She's on her last shirt, and he sees the scars all over her and calls her pure, and basically claims her to be a more powerful being or superior being like him in a lot of ways, because
equals.
He doesn't want to harm anyone that's like him, and which is really interesting. So trauma is sort of a way to be invisible to the Beast, I guess you could say, in this film.
Absolutely.
Camouflage, like World War Z. And
camouflage.
This abuse from Casey, it's just so tragic. And what's so tragic about it is the uncle is still her guardian.
Yeah.
All these years later. And we really get hit with that at the end of the movie when she's in the police car and the cop says, your uncle's here to take you away. And she's just frozen. Again, you can see that frozen look, but maybe she's going to fight back. Maybe she's going to say something. I think her interactions with the Beast and surviving this has led to her to realize, I'm finally going to speak up. I'm going to try to finally say something, because she never has, clearly.
I always look at the end of that film of her, basically, it's alluding to, she's going to say, I don't want to go back to him, and tell that female police officer why. That's how I always looked at the end of the movie.
And this movie does a lot of nonlinear storytelling with the past, specifically with Casey, specifically this one hunting trip. Mm-hmm. This hunting trip with her uncle and her father, learning how to hunt, learning how to outsmart prey, which is sort of what's led her to this moment of being able to be not unafraid but calm and just waiting for the right moments to understand
rational.
What's going on. You know, the other girls are sort of freaking out, sort of fight or flight. Let's just beat this guy up. And Casey is somebody who understands how strong somebody truly can be, and she observes that you both got thrown on the bed like you weighed nothing. He's massively strong. He's much stronger than us. He's different. We have to understand what's happening here before we can understand how to escape. We have to figure out what's going on. We don't even know if we're going to be killed. And then they meet the woman, and then when they meet Hedwig, and so she's the one that's sort of understanding. The more information we get from what's happening, the better chance we have at survival.
And also, again, connecting to animals, the way her uncle tricks her into doing what he wants is he says, let's play animals. Let's pretend we're animals. And so animals are all, the allegories and metaphors for animal behavior are all over this movie. So he was a predator. He was the beast, essentially, of her life until she encountered another beast in Kevin's Beast. And she's always been the prey, if you think about it that way.
I think that's a great way to think about it.
And then the idea of the metaphor of split and what that term means, it's actually visually shown all over the film. And essentially, the clearest examples are in the basements where the girls are being held. and there's two beds, and Casey's on one side of the room, and then the other girl's on the other side of the room, and there's a clear division in the wall separating them, and there's split. It's a split image. Same thing with when Kevin enters or stands in the doorways as as any of the characters. He's splitting he's splitting the walls, and so he'll be standing in the center in the door frame, and then the dark walls are on either side of him. He's splitting them. But then also we get to see reflections in terms of splits images, like for example when the doctor goes to that museum and she looks at that painting. It's a painting of a bunch of people bathe. It's called The Bathers. It's a French painting, and it's a bunch of naked people at a pond bathing, which also alludes to David Dunn in his fear of water, but also many personalities in the image. And the doctor looks at that, but the way he frames it, he and his DP, who he hired after watching It Follows, it's the same cinematographer, they framed it perfect center framing with that museum. And when you look at the benches behind her, it's actually like a split reflection, like butterfly wings. You know what I mean? Or a Rorschach image. And so I think they did a lot of things in the cinematography that work really well to allude to the idea of something being split.
Cinematography is overall very strong in this film.
Yeah.
It's very controlled camera work. I don't even think I remember any really shaky handheld shots or anything like that.
No.
Really solid lighting and excellent use of dark lighting. Sometimes the lighting is a little too safe, a little too well lit. Specifically, I think the therapist sequences and a lot of her scenes, they just, they don't have that same sort of artistic quality that they have in the basement, the lighting. But I guess that's a great way to show the difference between the worlds that we're in, whether we're in her office or with this therapist or in this dark, scary dungeon. But overall, the camera work's really solid and effective, especially, I think, in the third act when we're running through this terrifying basement. What's so fascinating about this movie is for so long we don't know where we are. We're in some sort of underground area. There are no windows, despite Hedwig's drawing of a window, which is such a great little twist. Where
That's
the
a great
first time
moment.
you see this movie, and he says, "I have a radio, and it's next to a window. You can come watch me dance and do some cool stuff." And then she tricks him to bring him there to see the radio, to see him dance, and it's just a drawing of a window. Look, it's open, and look, it's closed.
Now it's closed.
It's open, now it's closed.
That's
Wait,
a great moment.
did you think I had a real window so that you could leave?
Are you trying to trick me? Etc.
So, I think it's really great mystery of where the hell are we? At first, you think maybe we're in a basement of a home, but then it's too big because the first girl who escapes the room when she goes through the ceiling, Claire, and she empties out from the air duct somewhere else, and she's just running down this massive hallway of just pipes and electrical wiring, and it's terrifying, and you don't know where it is. It's clearly not a home. It's clearly a massive structure that has a lot of plumbing, a lot of requirements for water disbursement and electricity. And then we find out later on at the end of the film that we're at a zoo. We're underneath a zoo. It's really interesting. And it's abandoned, this section of it.
There's actually a lot of clues to it being a zoo in the film. So, here we go.
Let's do it, man.
I got another Easter egg
I
list.
love your lists, man.
Their abduction took place at the King of Prussia Mall, and there's a zoo near the mall with an underground maintenance area, which is large enough for the abductions to go undetected. There are also various animal statues laid around various scenes of the film. Hedwig's room contains lots of animal drawings all over his walls. The rock wall in the first locked room the girls are being held in is consistent with the walls used in the zoo. So it's not like the kind of wall that you would see in a home. It's got that plaster texture to it. There is a mention of a school field trip to Kevin's place of work, and Kevin has a variety of clothing. Presumably all of his clothes, so the racks of clothes, those are all clothes that he gathered at the Lost and Found at the zoo. He didn't have to buy any of those clothes. Those are just different outfits that his personalities ended up gravitating to from the Lost and Found at his place of work. Also, Dr. Fletcher mentions that the beast was formed because of your time in this place, hence the zoo.
Really
Lots of
interesting
zoo stuff.
I like that. That makes a lot of sense for why he would have clothing for all kinds of different people.
Yeah.
From a kid to a polished older woman.
A fashionista.
To, maintenance kind of guy. Yeah, fashionista. Just trying to... I like how Barry, he just works with what he has. He does the best he can. But I love how detailed each character that we meet really is, and how much meticulous detail M. Night went into writing, and then the performance, the production design, the wardrobe as well. They're all so unique and different talents. You know, Dennis has that OCD, which isn't a talent, but it's a quality. And then Barry has a very artistic quality. He makes fantastic drawings and paintings of dresses and wardrobe, and wants to be a fashion designer. And Miss Patricia, her talent seems to be
cuisine.
Cuisine, but also manipulation.
Yeah.
She's an excellent manipulator. She seems to be like the brains of the whole operation.
She also has a hint of the OCD as well, because when she makes that first sandwich, she messes up and it's not good enough. She didn't slice it perfectly. It's crooked.
Yeah.
So then she throws it out to make it again. So she also has a hint of that OCD, which I'm guessing in some capacity, all of the characters have some of the traits of Kevin. Kevin's own personality traits probably seep into every personality in some degree.
So you think Kevin has OCD?
Yeah, I think Kevin has a lot of mental health issues that all of the characters, all the personalities have, but they resonate in different ways.
I like to wonder, why are they there? Obviously, Kevin has a shotgun and shells in different locations. He's got the shotgun inside the study, the sort of living area, the living room, and then he's got the shells down the hall in the lockers. And every locker is for a different person.
Yeah.
And the shells are obviously in the one labeled Kevin, which Casey finds later on. And so I've always assumed that out of fear of exposing himself to the public, out of fear of potentially hurting somebody, Kevin himself brought himself down there into this abandoned part of this world, of the city that no one goes to, that's closed off to the public. It's gated outside and underground. I always assumed that Kevin went there first to hide and to let his personalities kind of roam free because he couldn't control them. And so I think for him, maybe he made a deal with the personalities that we have to go somewhere secluded, and this is where we're going to go, because he has things here that the other personalities don't know about. No one else knows about the shotgun, and no one else knows about the shotgun shells except for Kevin. We don't know about this until Casey says his name and he gets control. He's in the light for a very short amount of time. So I assume that Kevin made the decision to be there with all of his personalities.
I'm guessing, I agree with that, and I'm guessing Kevin got the job at the zoo because he loved being around animals, and he loved the zoo because it was probably the only place in the world where he ever felt safe as a child. And also the basement living quarters gives him an opportunity for his personalities to be safe, like you said, and to be able to roam and use the light without disturbing anyone, without gathering any nosy bodies, like Hedwig says. Because you could tell Hedwig says he calls Kevin and Dennis, because Dennis essentially is the one who does all the work now. You can assume because Kevin's been out of the light for so long, you can assume Dennis is the one that goes to work at the zoo. And Hedwig calls them nosy bodies. So that line assumes that people have been a little bit inquisitive about Kevin and what he does and living down there. But Dennis has been able to ward off any suspicions or questions to the point where he's been, for some reason, he's been able to establish being able to live there on the location. And so I'm assuming that employees and staff has asked about, like, what is this guy doing here, and he's a very strange person, but ultimately nothing's happened, so they're all safe there.
I don't think anyone knows he's down there.
You don't think anyone knows there?
No, because it's closed off. Remember, the security guard finds Casey. He's like, what are you doing in this part? This is like an abandoned part of the. What are you doing down here?
Well,
I don't think anyone knows that he's down there. Otherwise, people would go poking around.
So that's the question, because it is an area where this maintenance needs to be done.
But it seems like it's just fenced off and locked off.
I don't
and
think
it's abandoned, because remember when Dr. Fletcher goes to see him and Dennis is leaving, but he ends up letting her in.
Yeah.
It's abandoned. And the taxi guy says, what do you want? What do you want to be here for? No, it's been abandoned for years.
Oh, yeah, I think you're right. It might
been
be
abandoned for a long
closed off
time.
part of the zoo.
Yeah, I think no one knows he's down there.
Gotcha. I can see that. Yeah.
I don't think he works at the zoo. I don't think he does anything.
No, he does work at the zoo. That's why he has a walkie-talkie.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, he works at the zoo, and that's why.
So Dennis works at the zoo. Is that why he wears that?
Kevin got the job at the zoo years ago, but then I think once the bodies took over, once the personalities took over, Dennis has been going to work.
Oh, yeah, because the therapist says
that's why
you're
you
doing
got the
great
job.
at your job.
Yeah.
That's right.
So Kevin technically on paper, Kevin works at the zoo.
Gotcha.
But Dennis is the one who does it.
And yeah, I think that's all connected to Fletcher, and in terms of many times in the film they talk about how specifically the identities, no one believes us and no one believes Fletcher, and Dr. Fletcher has this big Zoom call, which is such an advanced technology back then, of trying to convince people that this is real and it does exist. Most people are scoffing at her or think it's ridiculous. They don't believe her, but she's trying to get people to believe her that this guy really has this disorder, and each personality is its own being, is its own personality, is its own biological makeup.
And she's believing that there is superhuman abilities that are potentially involved. Hence one of her, not coworkers, but another person in her field is like, you're going nuts. Like, there's no way these people don't have superpowers. And she's like, they do. So we get that line. So she believes that there's more to it than just what's happening in the mind.
She brings up other cases where one personality, someone had 3 personalities. One of them is 3 times as strong as the original, can do things that shouldn't be humanly possible. Another one, besides insulin, has to take a specific medication because they have different biochemistry and different, basically, their DNA changes in a lot of ways when they change into the other personality. Or the ones that were blind, an original blind person who had developed personalities, and then something happened where the brain healed the eyes and repaired them to the point where they could see, which is really fascinating.
Very, very cool. Let's get more into Split and the cool things about it after our intermission.
Before we continue, the best way to support Raiders of the Lost Podcast, everybody, is to become a patron at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Why would you want to do that? Because you get access to weekly bonus episodes of the show. You get access to our Discord, which is full of film fans and film lovers. We have watch parties on there. We just watched Split a few days ago on Discord, a watch party. That's why we're doing an episode now, because we're like, fucking movie's awesome. Let's do an episode on it. As well as you get access to the ad-free version of every single episode without commercial breaks. Patreon's the only reason we can do the show full time. So thank you to all of our patrons, past, present, and future. Sign up today at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Another great way to support the show is to leave those 5-star ratings and reviews on Spotify and Apple. These reviews are essential to us getting seen by new listeners on all of these platforms. They help us chart on the podcast charts. They add reputability to the show. And at 5,000 Apple ratings, I'm getting a tattoo of Anthony's choice. Maybe it'll be James McAvoy's back on my James McAvoy's face on my back.
It's not bad. It's not a bad tattoo.
He's a good-looking guy. And I'll read out a written review in just a minute on Apple. Another great way to support us is to just share us. Word of mouth is the best way for a podcast to grow organically. So share this episode or any episode of Raiders of Lost Podcast with any film fan you know.
This episode, of course, is sponsored by our friends at movieposters.com, the #1 place to get your posters online today. Be sure to use our promo code Raiders10 at movieposters.com to get 10% off your order right now. They have a huge selection of pretty much every movie and TV show imaginable in their poster library, as well as all sorts of sizes, framing, and even backlighting for your poster needs. If you love M. Night Shyamalan movies, if you love his posters, if you want to get some for your place, go to movieposters.com. They have all of the options for his posters. They have everything from your favorite Marvel movie to your favorite Hollywood classic. They have original prints, alternate prints, everything you can think of, as well as they even got this giant backlight framing option for movies posters like Fellowship of the Ring James has here. This is incredible stuff, high quality, the best you can get, best bang for your buck. And even more bang for your buck if you use our promo code Raiders10 right now at movieposters.com.
All right, let's get into our intermission, Anthony. Are you ready
I'm
for
ready.
The movie quote competition?
Yep.
All right. This is 2 characters speaking. What happened to your face? It's filthy. It is? Yeah. Oh, yeah, I was cleaning the chimney. We have no chimney. What?
I don't know.
It's the Amazing Spider-Man.
Amazing Spider-Man. Oh, Garfield. Yeah, gotcha.
What? We don't have a chimney?
Is it Aunt May and him?
Yeah.
All right, here's mine. Why you gotta go and say 50 eggs for? Why not 35 eggs or 39? I thought it was a nice round number.
Cool and Luke.
Yep. Well done.
Got it.
Mr. Paul Newman.
Anthony, guess this movie release year. Fury.
Fury came out in 20... I think it's a pretty old movie, considering. I'm going to say Fury came out in 2015.
2014. Damn. So close.
So close. What year did The Hustler come out?
1964.
61. 61.
Damn it.
Almost.
Damn it. Okay, Anthony. Movie pop quiz time. Who directed the feature-length film Lucy?
Huh. Luc Besson.
Oh, look at that. He pulled that out of his butt. Came out of nowhere. I thought you weren't going to get it.
That took me a second. Don't act so. Always the tone of surprise.
Well, because the look, you're like, huh, what is it?
Yeah, and then it just came to me.
Came to you, man.
What Pixar movie is Paul Newman in?
Cars.
Yep. Plays Doc Hudson. His last role.
R.I.P.
Time for Framed.
Oh, Framed. I forgot.
All right, I'm gonna do a screen recording on my phone, and then we'll go on to Framed.
Okay, Framed.wtf.
Today is the 21st. So what do we have?
August 21st, 2024.
Okay, we have some kind of dystopian future. There's a fireball falling from the sky, and there's these derelict structures on the corner of the edge of the frame.
It looks insanely familiar, but
What
I
is
have
this?
no idea.
Hold on. What is this?
There's like a red meteor falling from the sky.
Yeah, it also looks like an old movie.
Kind of, but also at the same time, it doesn't look that old. It looks sort of
I'm going to say Mortal Instruments.
90s,
Mortal Instruments.
80s, maybe 2000s. It has a Lord of the Rings vibe almost, but contemporary structures in a way.
I
have no
can't
idea.
even search this, so I guess I'm wrong. But I'm just going to search it because I don't know. Okay, now we have...
I don't know. I'm going to
Now we have satellite dishes. This is some kind of sci-fi film.
Oh, I know what this is.
Hold on.
I know what this is.
What is this? What is this?
Here, I'm going to type in my answer. I think I know what it is.
I'm going to say Matrix Revolutions.
Got it. I got it. Let's see if Anthony can keep going.
It's Alien 3.
Yep.
Alien 3.
Got it.
James got it on 2.
Woo!
You heard it here, folks. James got it on 2. Nice job, man.
That first image, I was like, what is that?
I also haven't seen Alien 3 in a long time, so...
The third image probably definitely would have gotten it.
Yeah.
And
just from the
then-
lighting, it's Fincher.
Yeah, and then clearly the fourth image for sure. Fifth, Ripley. Yeah, sixth is a xenomorph.
Well done, man.
Thanks.
You're crushing the framed game.
Let's go.
Framed game.
Except for the last one I did not get. You got hairspray.
I got hairspray.
I was totally lost. I had no idea.
Hey, you still did a great job, man. It was a toughie.
It was. All right, Anthony, do we have any unsubscribes this week?
Bet your ass we do.
I keep seeing them crop up. We talked about a couple the other day.
First up, we got Bido on Fantasy Showdown episode. Star Wars prequel soundtrack slaps. Unsubscribed.
It does.
Also on the episode, Felipe. Been watching you guys since you first made your TikTok. Love your guys' content. Huge Star Wars, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings fan. Been wanting this exact episode for a long time. And as much as I love Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, as much as I love Star Wars, Lord of the Rings is definitely the king that we've gotten for quality from all three franchises. Oh, also, unsubscribed. Thanks. Thanks so much.
Been listening since 2020. Wow, that's a long time. We appreciate it so much.
Also on the episode, Ross Tazil. You guys missed the worst villain in Star Wars history. Jar Jar Binks. You cannot convince me he's not a Sith.
The worst villain?
Unsubscribed.
Oh, that's great.
Jordan Smith. Love the episode, guys. Grew up on all three of these franchises, but Lord of the Rings takes the cake for me. Also, if we don't get a count on how many times James and Anthony said twists in this episode, I'm going to have to unsubscribe. Twisters!
That whole twist section Anthony came up with.
That was a fun one.
Speaking of that fantasy episode, the Showdown episode, real quick.
Yeah.
We had a poll on Spotify. I want to see where it's at right now.
Spotify, guy.
On Spotify, we had, you can still vote right now. It's open for
I'm going to vote.
a whole week.
I'm going to cast a vote.
Where you can vote what you think is the best fantasy franchise. And the poll is right now Lord of the Rings at 47% of the votes.
Wow.
Harry Potter has 35% of the vote. And Star Wars down to 17%. And I'm assuming the last couple of years of Star Wars content has done that.
Yeah, the lack
Star
of
Wars is
consistency.
usually close to Harry.
It's also interesting to see how the different platforms perform, because Twitter had Potter and Star Wars neck and neck.
They did,
behind Lord of the Rings.
100%.
But here, Potter destroyed Star Wars, and then Lord of the Rings destroyed both of them. Like the One Ring.
Well, I wouldn't say Lord of the Rings destroyed Harry Potter. It's only 12% more.
Actually, you're right. It's pretty
Not
close.
bad. It's not bad.
Yeah, it could still come out ahead.
It's beating it. I wouldn't classify that as destruction.
Okay, you're right. I got ahead of myself.
Thank you. Words matter, Anthony. Words matter.
Next up, Adam. Harry Pothead in the same conversation as Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. Unsubscribe.
Hell yeah.
Live long and prosper, my young Jedi apprentices.
Was that Scary Movie 2 where she's at school and she has a Harry Pothead book?
Yeah, Harry Potter.
It's just like Harry with the
They
bong.
said, I think she said, "What are you reading?" And she lifts it up. Yeah, it's Harry with the bong. Oh my God. Boris, seeing this new video pop up in my feed, instant unsubscription to support a channel.
Instant unsubscription.
All right, next up on Alien Romulus, Rodrigo wrote, first off, unsubscribed. Great show, guys. And then we have Jessington. Somehow I've never seen Alien, but after listening to your episodes on the first one, I thought of nothing else till I watched it. You guys are awesome. Also, that one time you said Magneto in the Wolverine episode freaking killed me.
Magneto.
I'm working mowing lawns, and all of a sudden I'm cackling like an idiot, hearing you guys shout out Magneto in a Mario voice. You guys turned me into that laughing psycho lawnmower guy. Unsubscribio.
Unsubscribio. Here's the photo, the book cover for Harry Pothead in Scary Movie 2. He's just in his pajamas ripping a huge bong.
Oh my God, that's amazing. That's amazing. I made a tweet about Alien Romulus on Twitter, and a person commented that there's too much fan service in the movie, and then I wrote, "Oh, we actually enjoyed the fan service," and then Burpee took a screenshot because that person just deleted their account, and so Burpee wrote, "Your response was so mean. This guy deleted his Twitter. Unsubscribe."
The thing with Alien Romulus is it's become so toxic.
Yeah.
We've made a bunch of content about it, and we've got a lot of interaction on our videos for Alien Romulus. And Anthony made this really funny tweet
I'll read it right here.
that got a lot of interaction.
Alien fans, stop making these new big idea films. We just want xenomorphs. Fede Alvarez. Okay, cool. I'll make an Alien film just like the originals we all love. Alien fans, you ripped off the original films. Do something different.
Yeah, it's just, you can't make some people happy, but people are so angry and upset. Some of the comments we've been getting in our content are so mean.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Calling us idiots for liking the movie, and it's just, relax. It's just a fucking movie, guys. Holy shit.
It's just a movie.
It's just a movie. What do you want? What do you guys want?
I don't know what they want.
I don't know what they want.
I don't know what they want.
They've gone big idea with the Alien franchise. They've gone back to small in scope with a controlled story with xenomorphs and face huggers. You can't make these people happy.
I don't know what else to do in that. What else can you do in that franchise?
It's one of those things where, listen, they're going to be making Alien movies forever.
Yeah.
The franchise is not going anywhere. But what we can hope for is good movies and good directing and creative decisions, unique things that we see in the films, and something new. Fede delivered a good movie. It's well directed. We got some new components. Did everything work? Not quite, but a lot of it did, and I really enjoyed the film. And people need to chill the fuck out.
I keep seeing people keep saying in comments, they just did the same thing again. I wish they would do something different for once. And it's just like, did you not see Prometheus and Alien Covenant?
Dude, you can even go Alien 3, Alien Resurrections. They're all different than the others. Some of them didn't work.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the fourth one's a bit odd, especially when the xenomorph licks her face.
It's weird. It's a weird one. I remember seeing that as a kid and being like, that's a weird movie.
Getting sucked out of the hole is odd, is a weird movie.
Pretty gnarly.
Weird movie, but they've been shooting shots, and listen, it's not going anywhere. The best we can hope for is just good movies, and we got a good movie. We got a good movie from Fede.
Solid movie.
Jeez, relax. It's just a movie.
Yeah. And again, we're talking about the haters, not you all, not everyone listening. I know James says, you people stop.
No, but like, if you didn't like the movie, that's fine, but you don't have to demean other people and call other people idiots or say they're wrong, where if you like this movie, you're an idiot. What are you talking about?
Yeah, the comment sections in the internet is just getting worse.
You could never make a movie.
It's getting so bad. It's wild.
It's a film, guys.
It's wild.
It's not real.
Man.
Life's not that serious. Go see the sun. Go to the beach. Go hold hands with somebody. Do something. Get outside, guys.
Pet a dog.
Seriously, get a dog and pet a dog. You feel way better.
Again, no one listening to this. James is not. It sounds like James is saying you guys.
I'm talking about the Twitter haters and the YouTube haters.
I know. I'm just saying. You should be a little more specific of you guys, not who.
Sorry,
not who's listening.
Our listeners are dope.
Yeah,
everyone listening to this. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the people who called us dumb for
those guys.
The people who called us dumb for liking this movie. That's who I'm talking about.
Anyways, let's move on to Ocean Roars. If the creator of GIF wanted it to be called GIF, then he should have used the J. Unsubscribed.
Thank you.
But still a Patreon supporter. Thanks, pal.
Thank you. Woo, that's 2 for me, 0 for you, Anthony. How's GIF working out for you over there?
Not well, man.
GIF is the way.
All right, Batman Who Laughs on our World War Z episode. Y'all didn't quote The Dark Knight Rises when talking about the zombies' speed. Unsubscribed. Look at the speed, the ferocity. I see belief. I see the League of Shadows resurgent.
Look at the speed.
The ferocity. Legal truth. Good point. Love the show. Unsubscribe. Thanks.
Simple and sweet.
It's drop the. It's simpler. It's cleaner. Corey Ryden on Alien. No 360, no scope, the Alien, easy for real, on God, unsubscribed.
Whoa. I just had a seizure listening to that. I don't even know what you said.
You're not in with the teens, man. That's how the teens talk.
On God.
On God, for real. Miller Joel, you guys like Covenant? I'm going to subscribe just so I can unsubscribe.
See, that's a funny one.
That's a good one,
That's how you do it.
Nathan knows, episode is longer than the movie. Resubscribed. And then that's it for so far. It was a great week of unsubscribes. Thanks, everybody.
We have a great 5-star written review from Ace Marrow. Best one man with schizophrenia movie podcast on this app. One of their episodes, Anthony was talking about how much he loved Brian De Palma movies. And this was a little after I joined the Patreon Discord. The day of the podcast, I went on their Discord and recommended to him my favorite movie of all time, Phantom of the Paradise. Nobody ever really talks about this movie or gives it the love it deserves. The same night, he checked it out, and we had a brief conversation about it, which was awesome. What was even cooler was the fact that he gave it some love on the podcast, and since then, he has talked about it multiple times. It makes me really happy that Phantom of the Paradise is just one of the many, many movies these guys bring into the light for tons of people who may not know about them. There are so many movies that deserve to be seen and talked about much more and live now. And I've now watched countless amazing movies, half of them being Rex by this podcast. I've never had so much fun listening to and interacting with the podcast before in my life. These guys genuinely just want to connect and talk about their love of film. Aw, thanks, pal.
Yeah, I remember.
What an amazing review.
I remember you recommending it, and I'd never seen it, and then I watched it that night, and it was amazing.
Anthony's a great guy, guys. He's a really terrific person.
Shut up.
He's a really good guy. Look at him. Who does that? Who does stuff like that? Not me. That's Anthony right there.
I go above and beyond.
He does.
For our listeners.
We appreciate it,
You
Ace.
go above.
I am beyond. I'm Batman Beyond.
What? I'm pretty sure Batman never said that in Batman Beyond.
I am Batman Beyond.
Fact check that one.
I never said that's what he says. It's just who I am.
Okay, then it makes no sense.
Sure it does. It's because I'm Batman Beyond.
All right, what's this review rec today?
Phantom Thread, which
Nice.
is on Netflix. Go check it out if you haven't
is it?
seen it in a while. Yeah, it's on Netflix now.
Nice. I recommend A Cat on a Hut Tin Roof, starring Paul Newman and Elizabeth Taylor. It's an adaptation of Tennessee Williams' play, and it's just a fantastic film from the 50s, 54, I think. And I watched it last night. It was just a masterclass of acting, really well photographed, and it really is just two characters in a room, and for the most part. And those actors were so dynamic and the best of their time, and they really brought it in that movie.
All right.
It's a cool film.
Thanks, bud. We all appreciate it. Shut up. Cat on a tin roof.
Cat on a hut tin roof. What? Hut cat on a tin roof.
Cat on fire on a metal roof.
Hut cat on a tin roof.
Spicy cat on a brick wall.
Oh my god.
All right, let's get back into our episode on M. Night Shyamalan Split. Did you know, Anthony, that there is a little bit of a hidden meaning in the title Split besides everything you brought up earlier in the episode?
It's lit.
Lit?
It's
lit.
It's like it's lit. Split. Is that what's hidden in it?
Nope, that's not at all what's hidden in it.
What's
you
hidden
need,
in
you
it?
need another I for it to be it's lit.
Huh?
What do you mean it's lit?
No, lit. Is that what's hidden in it?
Oh, lit.
Lit.
Sure, you could also do spit. You could also do tips. You could do tip, lip.
No,
lips.
like lit is actually spelled out in it. Like it's lit. Bro.
Sure. Yeah. Anyways, let me get to my hidden meaning behind Split title.
So you asked a rhetorical question.
It was
you didn't want my answer.
I didn't really want your answer.
It was a rhetorical
If
question.
you could just shut up, that'd be great.
You wanted me to give you. It was like an alley-oop, so you could slam dunk it.
If you just be quiet, what? I'll just start about right now.
Start about right.
I'll speak in Italian.
How about you shut the fuck up?
I'll speak in Italian. Exactly. Just don't say a goddamn thing.
How about you start out? Shut the fuck up.
The last thing that Kevin remembered was being on a bus on September 18th, 2014. This is the date which Scotland held a vote to decide if they were going to split from the UK. Oh. Kevin is also played by James McAvoy, who is from Scotland and has been outspoken as pro-independence.
Oh, interesting.
And UK is obviously, Scotland's still part of it.
Yes.
So interesting that they chose that date.
That's a really cool fact. Thank you for sharing that.
You're very welcome. Isn't it a lit fact, Anthony?
It's lit as hell,
It's
man.
a very lit fact.
Lit AF.
Now,
lit AF.
obviously this film deals with dissociative identity disorder. Mm-hmm. A very fantastical interpretation of it. And the film Split has been poorly received by mental illness and DID campaigners. Mental health advocates warn that the film stigmatizes dissociative identity disorder and may directly affect those living with it. To quote psychiatrist Dr. Garrett Marie Deckel, "You're going to upset and potentially exacerbate symptoms in thousands of people who are already suffering." So she also said that in contrast to McAvoy's character, people with DID may represent over 1% of Americans, are rarely violent, and research has shown they are far more likely to hurt themselves than to hurt others. Movies tend to portray only the most extreme aspects of the disorder, which can misrepresent a form of mental ill health that is not well understood by the public.
I mean, I get the critique of that, but also it is a movie. It's a fiction. It's not real. This is not a documentary. So, but that's been the case with pretty much any kind of mental health issue in film. When you look at schizophrenia, it's pretty much never been portrayed accurately. A Beautiful Mind is probably the most famous film that deals with schizophrenia. And in that film, Russell Crowe's character literally, I don't want to spoil anything, but he speaks and sees people who aren't really there. That's the form of his schizophrenia. But by far, the vast majority of schizophrenia cases, they'll hear a voice or voices. They don't actually see people. They don't really interact with situations. In that film, he interacts with actual like rooms full of his disorders creations, and that's not true at all. But it's not. It's just a movie. It's not a documentary. I understand
Best Picture winning movie.
Best Picture, yeah. Ron Howard, bro. Ron Howard had quite the run. But it's like when they made that film, it's like we can be completely accurate to the real person who went through this, the physicist who did suffer through that. But all he heard were voices. How do you show that narratively on the screen in a film? It's not a documentary of the character. It's just a story on as a movie, and so it works best for the narrative to go a little more extreme and to take it to the point over crossing that line of what the reality is, because it's not reality. It's a film.
Yeah.
It's like
we
watching
talked about the Intermission.
Yeah, like
it's not real.
Watching movies about serial killers doesn't make people want to kill people.
I don't know.
Who do you want to kill? Me?
Someone who cuts me off in traffic. In a statement about the movie, the International Society for the Study of Trauma and Disassociation cited a soon-to-be-released study of 173 people with DID. The researchers found that only 3% were charged with an offense, 1.8% were fined, and less than 1% were in jail over a 6-month span. No convictions or probations were reported in that time period. In an open letter to Shyamalan, several activists said that Split represents yet another gross parody of us based on fear, ignorance, and sensationalism, only much worse. And, for example, many DID patients don't have anywhere near 23 personalities.
Mm-hmm. Understandable. I understand.
Yeah.
I get it.
I get it too. But at the end of the day, it is just a film. Yeah. It's not real. But, M. Night Shyamalan, he can do whatever he wants. He's a filmmaker that has complete control of his career.
Yeah, and it's just a movie. Speaking of the filmmaking, I think it's really interesting. It's two things he did with the camera that we didn't talk about earlier is he often shoots characters center frame in this film. So they're literally perfectly splitting the frame. And you see with every character's framed that way in certain areas of the film. Not always, but that is, I'm sure, a creative decision that he and the DP made to have the characters split the frame in half. And also there's a few shots of the camera literally going sideways in reality, so that we're getting a sideways perspective, which I'm not sure exactly what that's saying. I like it, but maybe it shows the lack of balance with what's happening in the personalities in the mind of Kevin and his lack of control. And it does add a sense of claustrophobia because you see it with the girls when we're looking at the doorway a couple of times. He does this sideways framing. So it could be those two things, but it is an interesting thing to do with the camera. He does it a couple of times in this movie. Yeah. I'd never seen him do it in a film before.
Yeah, not just the camera work, but also the production design. Like the room that the girls are put into the first time they get into that basement, there's the center of the wall is split by metal wire brackets. That you brought that up earlier, right?
Talked about already.
Yeah,
man.
So just another example of how the production design or camera work just kind of splits the scene or splits elements of the film.
And I like the winding staircase that we see outside of the doctor's office in the building that she works in, that Kevin has to go up and down. And there's a great shot after she basically suspects that he's not Barry and that it's Dennis. He tries to fool her, and then he storms down the staircase. But we don't see him, but you can tell from how hard he's stomping on the steps that he's emotionally aggravated because he had to eat that chocolate with his fingers and throw the wrapper down. So you could tell that he was holding in that emotional crisis as an OCD sufferer, and then he let it out emotionally when he was going down the steps.
Yeah, that's a great point. Then walks over through the garbage, which no normal person would do, to try to show that he's Barry and not Dennis.
Unbelievable. He walked right through that garbage. The average person would walk around that. That's
what I mean.
That's when the dialogue...
Some of the dialogue is just very
it's
wooden.
So matter of fact to the point where it's just like... Here's the thing, is like his dialogue sometimes is like Wes Anderson dialogue. But Wes Anderson, he creates a different world. So his characters, when they speak oddly, it makes sense.
That guy's wearing a blue shirt. It makes sense in
exactly with the context of his film and the what his tone of filmmaking is. But when Shyamalan does kind of the same thing with some of his dialogue, and it doesn't work because he's basing it in reality. And so people speak in his movies in a manner that people don't behave in that way, really. And so some of the dialogue is, and often it's supporting character dialogue, where it's just like a person would never really say that way. But I mean, it's his movie. He can write however he wants.
Yeah, in this movie, I think it's so well paced. And when it comes to, wooden dialogue, it's still a really good script in terms of action and events that are happening, in terms of being kidnapped, being put in this basement, and then we have multiple escapes. The first escape is Claire. Through the roof, they discover something that Dennis said or Hedwig said, that they had to make it safe, meaning that all this drywall is fresh. These walls are new. There must be something above them that they find. Well, they're trying to find the hole in the wall. They're trying to find an opening to get out of, and they find the metal air ducts above them, which Claire goes through. Obviously, she escapes far enough to the lockers and hides inside of one, but is eventually caught by Dennis, who puts her in a separate room by herself. And then Marcia, she has a short escape, where it's very short-lived because her and Casey are taken by Miss Patricia for a proper meal, a proper dinner, and she makes them the mayonnaise and cheese and ham
After
sandwiches.
he already gave them sandwiches.
Yeah. Have a proper meal. We'll have another sandwich. And
I'm sorry.
It's one of those plot points where we have to separate the characters.
Yeah.
It is what it is. It's just like, how do we break them up? It's similar to putting Kevin turning into the Beast on a train.
Yeah.
It metaphorically makes a lot of sense with the first film, but it's like, he could have done that in the basement.
No, that works for me because it's connected to the trauma of his dad's death.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's connected to the past film.
That's totally fine.
And so Marcia sees an opportunity to get out of the kitchen while Patricia has her back turned to the two of them and hits her with a chair. I would have taken the knife and stab
him with that chair over and over and over again.
Marcia, poor choice of weapon.
Great idea.
Must be a wrestling fan. It doesn't actually knock people out.
I do appreciate how the chair didn't break, because I think so many other films you see chairs break pretty easily. It's kind of hard to break a chair.
I would have kept hidden.
Yeah.
Marcia,
oh my God. Great idea.
Should have kept
Poor
bashing.
execution.
So Marcia runs out of the kitchen, but there's nowhere to run to. Every door is locked. There are no windows. There's nowhere to go. So she gets put into a separate room as well. And there's even a second situation where they almost escape, where Marcia and Claire, we don't see them for a little bit, but then they're communicating through the walls because they find out that, or they hear voices or something. And she finds a hanger. Marcia finds a hanger inside of her room and tries to undo the slide bolt on the outside.
Yeah.
One of those situations where Claire says the exact model of the lock. I'm like, oh,
exactly.
It sounded like there was a slide bolt lock in the front of the door. We should try to open that up. I'm like, who the fuck says shit like that? I was like, what?
Especially that character.
What do you work at Home Depot?
Especially that character who's like a popular girl at school.
They find those. You can find that at L5 Home Depot next to the locks and bolts.
That's the Shyamalan dialogue where it's like, what? After I watched this movie the other night, I Googled what that was just so I could be like, oh, that's exactly what she meant. Like, holy shit, dude. Fucking A. Now, speaking of the flashbacks, there's a flashback to Casey's past that I think is really interesting because it's another deep connection to Unbreakable. So, in this film, when Casey's a little girl and she's clearly been abused by her uncle, and he approaches her, she has the rifle in her hand. Or is it a shotgun? I think it's a shotgun. And he's like, he stops, he starts talking her down. He's like, what are you doing? Like, he's like, don't do this. This actually perfectly mirrors the scene in Unbreakable where David's son holds the gun to him to prove that he's a superhero and can't be hurt. And actually, what the uncle says, the dialogue the uncle says, is pretty much almost word for word exactly what David says to his son about putting the gun away. Because first, both men speak to the child innocently of like trying to get on their side, like calmly trying to get them to put the gun down, and then they both get angry and yell at the kid.
I'm getting very angry.
Very angry. You're gonna be in big trouble. And then David Dunn's son puts the gun down, and then Casey drops the gun, and then he's able to take the gun away from her. So those two scenes are actually perfect mirrors of each other.
Which mirrors Goodfellas. Karen, I love you. I love you. I gotta come home to this shit. I gotta get worried about getting whacked on the streets, and I gotta come home to this shit.
I'm sorry.
How do you like it, Karen? How do you like it?
Speaking of,
I'm sorry.
we're gonna do movies from memory of Goodfellas for our next episode.
It's gonna be tough.
So
there's a lot of fucking scenes.
Yeah, it's like 800 scenes in that movie, but we'll do it. We'll do it, and he can do it.
Fucking most obscure Departed reference.
Oh my God! But this great connection to another connection to Unbreakable that I forgot to mention earlier.
That's an awesome one.
It's exactly
I always
the same
thought that
scene.
seemed familiar too.
Exactly the
And
same
now
scene.
Yeah, now I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
Man, I gotta watch Unbreakable tonight. I think
Dude,
the movie's
it's fucking fantastic.
It is fantastic. Now, when we're talking about these personalities, Anthony,
Yes, James.
which do you think is the most interesting? Which one's your favorite that we see on screen?
I think that Hedwig's my favorite
Why?
because he's so charming and funny, but also he's the only child,
Etc.
etc. And it's interesting the way that he plays it, and Hedwig, it shows the delusion because Hedwig says things like, one day I'm going to be taller than you, to Casey. He's taller than her already, but in his mind, he doesn't see that he's taller than her. You know what I mean? So his perspective, he doesn't just think he's a kid. His perspective is as a child's perspective, too.
Speaking of height, do you think there's an inconsistency with the character Hedwig, who's awesome? I like Hedwig a lot. However, the first time we meet Hedwig, he's sitting at the bottom of the doorway, right? Underneath,
Yeah, he's on the floor.
with the open door,
Yeah.
and he's looking at them, talking to them. And then he walks into the room, and McAvoy walks with his ass on the ground, basically, walking very low.
Yeah.
And then Hedwig's standing up later on.
Mm-hmm.
He's standing up in the bedroom, dancing to Kanye West and all that. So do you think there's an inconsistency there, or do you think that's just him being playful?
I think it was him being playful, but also for M. Night to show the audience right away this is a child.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that I don't think it's off that he stands up normally from then on. But I think that he wanted to show the audience right away this is a kid. So not just his voice, but to show his. I think that when Hedwig walks like that, the first time we see him, and he walks really low, that's how tall he thinks he is. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. In his mind, in his perspective.
I think Hedwig's a great character.
Oh, and also the other question, I think that Patricia is the most interesting.
Why?
Because of her immense knowledge of everything, her ability to control, and her ability to not necessarily make the other people feel safe, but she's able to really keep the girls from escaping. She's probably the most important personality right now to unlocking the beast. I would say Patricia. And she seems to be the mastermind of the trio of Dennis, Hedwig, and Patricia. She seems to be the one who wants the beast released more than anyone.
I think that's clear because Dennis says, well, first Hedwig says he's not supposed to touch you. He's not allowed to touch you. And then Dennis himself says, I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to touch you. You are forbidden food. Mm-hmm. Or what does he say? You're
sacred food.
Sacred food.
Yeah.
And I make sure I won't do that again because we can assume that Patricia chewed him out, basically saying, you can't touch those girls because he tried to get Marcia to dance for him naked. Mm-hmm. But which we don't see. It happens off screen because she's the first girl that's taken by him. And so clearly Patricia's the one in charge, the mastermind, the one who believes in the beast the most, the one that's given Hedwig his opportunity to be powerful in terms of coming to terms, being able to use the light as much as possible, because that's why I think Hedwig's so fascinating, is because he has that secret ability that the others don't know except for Patricia and Dennis, that he can take the light whenever he wants. And I like the way that it's described to us what's going on inside this head of Kevin, where Dr. Fletcher brings it up multiple times when she's talking to Barry, who's really Dennis, about, it's described that you're all in a room sitting around in a circle in chairs and you're all trying to grab the light, but it's up to whichever Barry, if Barry's in charge or Patricia's in charge, who lets you have the light.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to imagine what's going on inside Kevin's head.
And on top of McAvoy's vocal performance and adding different accents, most of his characters do have a hint of what looks to be a Northeast accent, like a Philly accent. A couple of them have that. Barry has a hint of it. Kevin has a hint of it, and Dennis has a hint of it. And also Hedwig has a bit of
Barry's as thick as fuck, bro.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I mean, where I think they all are an extension of Kevin, and they manifest as different traits of Kevin. So they all have Kevin in them. Patricia's the only one that we see. And I think that Jade, the one in the video, are the only ones who don't have any hint of Philly accent whatsoever. So I think that alludes to why Patricia's so powerful, because she has the least amount of Kevin in her, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And Anya Taylor Joy, she's really terrific in this film. This is, I think, probably the first movie I probably saw her in.
The Witch?
Okay, yeah, The Witch.
Yeah.
The Witch came out the year before, 2015.
Yeah, The Witch came out before this, I believe.
Yeah, The Witch was 2015.
Yeah.
Split was 2016.
It was a back-to-back, and then she became the new horror scream queen.
And now she's really just one of the it girls. And she's also in Glass as well. But she's really great in this film, and she cries on command so many times in the movie. She really had that range, and she clearly is one of the best actors of her generation, and even early on in a movie like this has the star quality to carry a film as the main character for the entire runtime terrifically.
Yeah, I mean, she's a fantastic actor, and then she did The New Mutants right after this, but that had a delayed release, so after Split, she had some more films come out, but she was one of the leads of New Mutants.
Woo, that movie.
Don't recommend watching that movie.
Have you seen it?
It's awful. It's up there for worst superhero movies ever.
Is it really?
It's really terrible.
I've never seen it, but I know it's got horrible, horrible reviews.
It was so bad they decided not to release it theatrically and just put it on, I think, Hulu.
They didn't release it theatrically?
No. It was that bad.
Is it based off X-Men characters?
Yep, they're all mutants in the film. They're all like mental patients at an institution.
Oh no, they released it worldwide.
Did they?
It had a box office.
Oh.
So on a budget of 67, it pulled $49 million. So it was a bomb. Well, not a huge bomb.
It
but
made that much money.
It lost the studio probably $50 million at the end of the day.
Yeah, there's a huge amount of visual effects in it. That makes sense for that budget. But she is one of the preeminent actors of her age, absolutely, and she's gonna have going forward one of the biggest careers in Hollywood over the next 20 years easily.
Dune 3, baby.
Dune 3.
Dune Messiah. She's gonna eat that movie up.
It's gonna be great. That's why she's in that tiny amount of screen time in Dune 2, just because there's so much for her to do going on in the future of the story. But she is, and the other two actresses are very good, and they both have been in a ton of stuff. But Anya does definitely set herself apart as being supremely talented, even amongst those three. But ultimately, this is McAvoy's show.
Yeah,
it's because she has a little bit less to do in terms of character. She plays an introvert. She plays someone who's self-isolates, someone who is solitary, someone who uses her mind and doesn't speak much. So McAvoy obviously has more to do, but she does hold her own, especially against him, and she is really perfect in this film.
And despite it not being a very gory film because it's an M. Night Shyamalan PG-13, the insinuated gore itself is just terrifying enough, which is so effective where the beast becomes the beast. He runs through the train tracks.
It was an animal of some kind.
Then he comes back to his lair, and Casey wakes up, and she discovers her friends, who are not friends, but the other girls have been eaten alive.
Their guts have been eaten.
Guts have been eaten. They're both dead. And it's terrifying. You hear the munching, but you don't even see the beast. You don't see him eating. You just see the munching.
Yeah.
I wish there was a little more blood on him when she saw him in the kitchen, when he came into the kitchen.
They probably couldn't.
Yeah. But
it's just really in his
he's
teeth.
got a couple smears like on his lip. That's about it. But then when the beast, we cut to him on the wall, climbing the wall. That was a terrifying sequence.
That was a fun shot.
I think that shot was in one of the trailers too, which was really exciting. So that was really terrifying to see him crawling up this flat wall. And then running away, and obviously first she says Kevin Wendell Cobb to bring Kevin back. I mean Crumb. Crumb.
Why is that school obsessed with, like, why is he the theme song? I know he's a famous Quidditch player, but they shouldn't be talking about their school at least.
Goblet of Fire divert. Let's get back into Split. And so she says Kevin Wendell Crumb. Kevin comes back for a few, tells her about the shotgun, and then she quickly is running down. Eventually, once the beast starts coming back, she goes to get the shotgun shells. And it's really terrifying. And I love that sequence where going down these corridors, and she makes it through these gates and is pointing the shotgun, waiting for the beast to come. And he's all the way down at the end of the tunnel. And then he goes into the ceiling. He's just crawling upside down the pipes. And he starts to hit all the lights out, so you can't hear but nothing but darkness. It's terrifying, really scary.
It's great.
Really good use of CGI there. And then McAvoy's terrifying voice. It's so different than all the other characters.
Rejoice!
It's crazy. So I love that sequence. The whole climax of the film is really terrific. It's really exciting. I think it's a really good payoff for the mystery of the whole film.
Yeah, it's a really sensational third act that really elevates the film and makes it, in my opinion, a 4-star movie. And I like the death of the doctor. I like how he crushes her. And that's why she couldn't say the name out loud, because he crushed her. So that's why she wrote the name.
Well, plus she was so dazed from the drugs.
Yes, that's what it is, so dazed from the drugs. But and again, if it was rated R, we would have been able to see her like really. I wanted to see her like body like smush when he was holding it, like really crush and compress it. But the sound effects did a good enough job with that.
It's a tough way to die.
Yeah, it's fucking brutal, man. Squeezed to death? Damn.
Just your heart exploding inside of you.
Hey, man. Your bones breaking, and
that's pretty intense. But it's badass because Casey shoots him twice with a shotgun, 2 slugs.
Yeah.
In the chest and the abdomen.
2 slugs.
Yeah, just right through. And it didn't even leave the body. That's how powerful the beast is. Because the beast is described, obviously, with the long mane of hair. He doesn't, because he's got a shaved head. Muscular, but also skin as thick as rhino hide.
Yeah.
And
the knife breaks on it.
The knife breaking on it from Dr. Fletcher trying to stab him with it. It was really cool. I like how we didn't even see it. She pulled back the knife and it was just broken off.
Yeah.
But to shoot him twice with the shotgun and him survive, be able to stand up and then pull the bars wide enough to be able to squeeze his head through was really cool. It's really terrifying.
Yeah. I really like that. I like the reveal of the beast. I always imagined after this film that the next film he would be, when he turned, he would be more beast-like. Like he would eventually get to that description.
Like a werewolf.
Yeah, like of having a mane of hair and even bigger and long claws. So that's how I imagined this was like the first stage of the beast. They never ended up doing that because, spoiler alert for Glass, if you haven't seen Glass, they all die in Glass, so we didn't get to see that. But I was really hoping for when news came out of Glass, I was like, oh, is he going to be like beastie in Glass? And he wasn't.
Beast mode.
Beastie. Hello, Beastie.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I think he should have gone in a different direction with Glass and just gone make the Beast a more terrifying character rather than putting everyone in a psych ward.
That movie essentially he just shackled all of the characters and he just basically trapped the story rather than really letting anything truly happen in that narrative. So that was ultimately the weakness in the twist being the overarching company and the doctor's actually working. She knew all along.
Spoilers.
But I said spoiler warning.
Oh, yeah,
earlier.
you said spoiler warning.
So it's just like the approaching Glass was really, for me, unsatisfying for what the setup was going to be. And that even the battles were kind of disappointing. But you can't knock him for trying. He tried something different.
Yeah. Also, many of the interactions between Barry, or actually Dennis, with the emergency therapy sessions were caused by emails being sent in the middle of the night from one of the personalities. Which personality do you think it was?
It was... Oh, which personality sent the emails? I'm going to go with... Let me look at the names. Hold on. Let me look at the list of names. I feel like I read it, but I can't remember right now. I'm going to say it was... I'm going through everyone... Was it Orwell?
So, it's not Orwell. Just to refresh your memories, so multiple times, all the therapy sessions are started because in the middle of the night, one of the personalities was sending emergency emails to Dr. Fletcher saying, I need an emergency session, and then it'd be a session where Dennis was impersonating Barry.
Yeah.
Right? And she eventually figured that out, and I love the scene where she realized it is Dennis and they meet for the first time.
Was it Barry?
It was Barry the whole time.
That's right.
Barry's the one sending the emails in the middle of the night because he finally gets control of the body, but then it's Dennis who has to go and impersonate Barry to make sure and make the doctor think that everything's okay.
That makes total sense.
And then at the end of the film, there's an email sent every minute for 14 minutes straight of we need your help, we need your help, we need your help.
Yeah. That's why he is pretending to be Barry when he goes there. That makes total sense. And then the film has a great conclusion where we get, obviously, the setup for Glass. But we finally got to see, in one unedited take, McAvoy's Kevin, many of his personalities coming to light in the same time and communicating with each other. So it looks like the evolution of the Beast allowed the personalities to actually share the light at the same time.
Well, it's not that. It's because Casey used his name. Casey said Kevin Wendell Crumb. Mm-hmm. And remember, the therapist, Dr. Fletcher, said that you can't say his name because it'll bring chaos to the group.
Oh, gotcha.
Remember? It's sort of a last resort.
I didn't.
So, yeah. I can. So even when she's talking to Dennis, she said, I can say his name right now, and I can get control of you, and I can bring Kevin into the light, but I'm not going to do that. Mm-hmm. Because I know it will bring chaos to the group, and everyone will immediately start reaching for the lights. So it's a combination of all that. Also, probably the Beast being there as well. But remember, that's what he says to Dennis. She says that to Dennis.
Man, that's why you get paid the big bucks, man.
Refined film analysis.
But it was great to see, and we also got a couple of shots in the climax of seeing what happens to him in the transition from personality to personality, where he kind of goes numb for a moment and dazed for a moment until another personality takes the light. But that I think the whole movie, we were all waiting for him to do it all in one take. And so seeing it in the reflections, hearkening back to in Unbreakable, Mr. Glass is revealed through reflections in pretty much almost every scene he's in. His first shot is a reflection in glass. And so I liked how he went back to that idea when we got to see all the horde speaking to each other at the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good point. The glass.
Yeah.
He's like, it didn't go through. And Hedwig's like, wow, this is so crazy, man, etc. Overall, this movie's really excellent, and I respect M. Night Shyamalan so much, for what he's doing in his career right now. Really, not many filmmakers are at this point where you can self-finance your own movies and you're just betting on yourself every time.
Yeah.
He's at a point where he's not making huge budget films, so he's got such a big name. And he knows that. I think he understands how big his name is and how big of a fan base he is because people are turning out to M. Night Shyamalan movies no matter what. He's not doing Christopher Nolan numbers, but he's doing numbers where if I make a movie for $30, $40 million, I'm going to probably break even no matter what. If it's not a huge hit, I'll still pull 60 mil at the box
But
office.
even break even right away, but then in the long run, over 10 years, he'll make a lot of
make money off of it.
Yeah.
So something like Trap's a budget about $30 to $40 million. Right now, it's grossed about $65 million at the global box office. It'll probably end its run close to 70 or 75. Over time, he'll make a couple mil off it easily on profit. So at the end of the day, he's just at this point where since The Visit, he's just taking the money he makes and makes a movie with that money. And just keeps using the profit from box offices to keep making his movies, which is just such an awesome state to be in for a guy who's made such huge successful films as well. And he made a lot of money off Split. He probably made $50 million himself off Split.
Him and Jason Blum.
Blumhouse, yeah. Blumhouse, this was the second film they produced together because...
And they distributed it, so huge.
Well,
and
Universal
distributed
it.
Yeah.
But Blumhouse also produced The Visit. So this is the second film they produced together. But it was an insanely successful film.
Yeah.
But even The Visit was a successful film. They made $78 million off that movie.
Yeah, on a $5 million budget.
Yeah, so it was a low budget. And then from then on, it's just such a cool thing to be able to self-finance your own movies, to have no boss, no one telling you how to make your movies, giving you complete creative freedom, do whatever you want. And just, I think it's just such a luxury that I think M. Night's earned and definitely taken advantage of.
He's like Tyler Perry, same thing. And also, I think he realized, you know what? His movies make money, but they don't make that much. His last huge hit was Signs before Split. I think The Village made decent money too.
Village was very
Yeah.
successful. It was like a
$200 million.
it's $200 million on $70 million budget.
But that's the thing. His budgets used to be 70 to 80. Lady in the Water, $75 million budget.
Yeah.
Happening, big budget. Last Airbender, $100 million budget. After Earth, $100 million budget. I think he realized, you know what? The big budgets maybe don't work for me and the stories I tell. It's probably wiser to keep them mid to low range budgets, and then my movie's not going to make $1 billion, but if it makes $100 million, that's great for everyone, and it could. And that's what his movies always gross. They generally average about $70 million per gross.
And that works because
Yeah.
M. Night Shyamalan, his ideas are big. His ideas are massive in scope. So you don't have to make the setting massive in scope. You take your big idea and you put it in small scope, couple different settings. Split. We're mostly in this underground basement.
Yeah. Old,
we're on a beach.
Yeah, Old made $98 million.
We're on a beach for 85% of that movie.
Cabin in the Woods made $55 million.
We're in a cabin in the woods for 100% of that movie.
Yeah, he's realized I think he's realized who his audience is and how much he can pretty much guarantee he'll make a minimum amount of money on something. So he feels safe investing 15, 20, 30, $40 million on Trap now, which is almost at double its budget for its box office. So it's about to break even. So I think he's realized, like, this is the sweet spot for the production needs of my films that I want to make, and not to go higher than that.
It's cool. He's basically, no matter what, we're going to be okay. So we can make a movie, and if it's a hit, it's a hit. That's great. But if it's not a huge hit, we'll break even, and we'll make another one.
And he has complete control of everything, which is something that I'm sure every director wishes they had. Yeah, I really like Split. I think it's his top movies for sure. If I was going to put it on a list, I would say I would go Unbreakable, Sixth Sense, The Village, Split, then Signs are my top 5 Shyamalan movies. I think it's a very good film, and it's a fantastic horror movie, and obviously a remarkable performance from James McAvoy that should have received more attention, although fans know how good it is, even though he didn't receive any accolades whatsoever. But it's a phenomenal horror movie, and then it really is a testament to his originality as a filmmaker, and it's a fun time too.
James is the man. It's interesting that Dennis is the personality on the poster too, as well.
Yeah,
Dennis without glasses seems to be the poster.
because I think he wanted to hide Kevin even existed in the film.
That's a good point, man. What a hit! Such a big hit.
Yeah, awesome job.
All right, well, that wraps our episode on M. Night Shyamalan's
That was epic.
Split, which is such a good movie. We had such a good time watching it on our Discord watch party with a bunch of fans and listeners.
Bunch of film boys.
If you want to join our Discord and have watch parties with us, just go to patreon.com/Raiders of Lost Podcast. You can sign up today. Leave those 5-star ratings and reviews on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, everybody. And see you next time. I took your line.
See you next time.
Take care.
Rejoice.
You're pure.
Etc.
Etc. Thank you for watching Raiders of the Lost podcast. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button as well, notifications for sure. Listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere you can listen to podcasts, and be sure to check out this other content we have on our YouTube channel.